It might be the end of the line for Frankie Edgar, and he knows it. One of the top mixed martial artists of the last 10 years, he's finally laying down his gloves. But before that, he plans on making one last appearance in the octagon. Keep watching as we go over who the veteran wants to fight. So let's get into it. First up, why is he retiring? Edgar, the former UFC lightweight champion and 3-division contender, confirmed in an interview with ESPN that he intends to compete for the final time at UFC 281, which is expected to take place at Madison Square Garden in New York on November 12th. This piece of news was first reported by TSN via Edgar's manager, Ali Abdelaziz. So here's the thing, the Toms River, New Jersey native has lost 4 of his last 5 fights, and these aren't good odds, and especially since Marlon Vera and Corey Sandhagen brutally knocked him out in his last 2 fights. Even though Edgar and Vera's bout was close, it was stopped in the 3rd round by a front kick to the face. During a UFC career that began in 2007, Edgar won titles in 3 different weight classes, including lightweight, featherweight, and bantamweight. He also had 3 unsuccessful attempts to capture the featherweight title too. According to Edgar, his choice to retire was influenced just as much by the desire of his loved ones as it was by his own. Talking to ESPN, the 40-year-old knew that his last 2 fights didn't turn out the way he'd hoped, and if it was up to him, he'd keep fighting until he physically couldn't, but that would be selfish towards his loved ones and his family. So who does Edgar want to face? Well, we know he wants to fight at Madison Square Garden in November, and win or loss, he's definitely retiring, and he's asked Dana to book him for one last bantamweight fight against none other than Dominick Cruz. The answer has called out former UFC and WEC bantamweight champion Dominick Cruz, who will face Marlon Vera on August 13th as the ideal opponent to end his career with. And we all know that Edgar fights whoever the UFC puts in front of him. He's a warrior like that. But since this is his last fight, he wants to make it a battle about legacy. He wants Cruz. One of the reasons for this is they were both champs at one point. Dominick Cruz was the champion at 135 pounds, while Edgar was the champion at 155. 2 former champs facing off. It's definitely going to be a fight worth watching. Next up, this future Hall of Famer has had quite a journey in the UFC. The former champ's well liked in this sport and seems to be a lock for the Hall of Fame. He defeated BJ Penn to win the lightweight title in the UFC in 2010. He continued to defend the belt against Gray Maynard, but ended up losing 2 extremely close fights to Benson Henderson. He later downgraded to featherweight and made 2 unsuccessful belt challenges against the legendary Jose Aldo. He moved down to bantamweight in 2020, where he has since posted a 1-2 record, and it hasn't been an easy road. Edgar claims he underwent 2 procedures to enhance his quality of life during the Vera versus Sandhagen battles in 2021, but he doesn't think they had an impact on his preparation for or performance in the fight. When the gloves are finally down, he said he's determined to make his retirement last because he's physically and spiritually in good shape, and he doesn't mean actually quitting MMA. In his own words, he doesn't want to be like Donald Cowboy Cerrone, who said goodbye to working out as he retired recently, and fans know he's going to be okay, as Frankie the Answer Edgar always has a plan. He's renowned for competing for the bulk of his career in a weight class against opponents who are noticeably bigger, but he always managed to prevail. And even if you put aside his exceptional stamina and heart, he uses his precise striking and movement to figure out his opponent's strategies and foil them. And finally, if not Dominick Cruz, who could Edgar face in his retirement fight? It seems likely that the promotion will give Edgar the fight he wants, but if not, there's some other great options too. For one, Adrian Yanez, a rising UFC bantamweight, has repeatedly said how he'd love to face a great like Frankie Edgar. One of the top prospects in perhaps the UFC's strongest division is 28-year-old Yanez, and that was demonstrated shortly after his most recent victory at UFC Austin on June 18th. This is where the star knocked out Tony Kelly inside the Moody Center, just a few hours drive from his childhood home, to earn his 5th consecutive victory in the octagon. Days later, the victory landed him a desired position in the bantamweight rankings, and this could be an explosive fight. But if that doesn't sound appealing to you, veteran bantamweight Cody Stammen's also prepared to start a new winning streak in the octagon after getting back on the winning track at UFC Austin, and he'd be interested in a matchup with rising star Adrian Yanez or a dream battle with future Hall of Famer Edgar. No matter who faces the Answer in the octagon next, fans are just hoping it'll be a banger as a proper send-off to the veteran. And now for other UFC news. First up, Charles Oliveira isn't afraid of taking his next fight to the ground. The fight between Charles Oliveira and Islam Makhachev is scheduled, and the champ has some things to say. He'll try to reclaim the 155-pound title when he competes against the Russian fighter in the main event of UFC 280 in Abu Dhabi on October 22nd. The Brazilian fighter wants to make things simpler for Makhachev by starting the fight on his back. Du Bronx has an 11-fight winning streak that includes victories over greats like Dustin Poirier, Michael Chandler, Justin Gaethje, Tony Ferguson, and Kevin Lee. In the octagon, on, Makhachev has defeated opponents like Bobby Green, Dan Hooker, Thiago Moises, Drew Dober, and Arman Tsarukyan in his previous 10 fights. Ever the polite guy, the shoot box representative respects Makhachev's athletic abilities and doesn't think of him as an easy opponent. However, he does believe that his fighting technique makes him a poor opponent, and it makes sense because the Dagestani has mostly faced strikers who are afraid of being taken down, and it'll be interesting to see how he handles the fight against a submission master like Oliveira. And now, Nate Diaz might have gotten more than what he asked for. Nate Diaz has finally earned his request to compete in his last UFC match of his contract, but Khamzat Chimaev's prepared to turn the Stockton legend's farewell into a funeral. We don't really know what Dana was thinking, but it really feels like he hates the Diaz brothers. According to ESPN, Diaz and Chimaev will now square off in the 5-round main event of UFC 279 on September 10th in Las Vegas. The 37-year-old Diaz hasn't competed since losing to Leon Edwards in June 2021. He has publicly lobbied with the UFC to give him the last bout left on his contract. Despite Diaz's claim that he's been attempting to fight Chimaev since April, Dustin Poirier was widely believed to be his chosen opponent for his championship bout. Given that Diaz is nearly certain to leave the UFC after this upcoming match, the organization seems determined to capitalize on the value of his name. The UFC checks all the boxes by pairing the veteran with Chimaev, a massive rising star. Chimaev, who is 11-0 in MMA, is excited at the thought of retiring a legend, and he's definitely the favorite in the odds against Diaz. And finally, UFC 280 just got a whole lot better. Ever the controversial figure, Aljo's next fight has just been moved. Aljamain Sterling versus TJ Dillashaw has been moved to UFC 280, making the card even better. The UFC bantamweight title fight between champion Sterling and previous two-time champion Dillashaw will now be the co-main event in Abu Dhabi, United Arab Emirates, on October 22nd, 2022, according to Yahoo Sports' Kevin Lowell. The match was initially scheduled to happen at UFC 279 on September 10th, 2022. The news of this change follows the announcement earlier today that Khamzat Chimaev and Nate Diaz welterweight non-title fight will serve as the main event of UFC 279 in Las Vegas. After settling the score with his adversary Peter Yan in April of 2022, the Funkmaster will attempt to defend his second championship. The first time he won the title, it was due to disqualification because of an illegal knee, and many have continued thinking he didn't deserve the belt. And then there's Dillashaw, who hasn't competed since losing in flyweight title fight against Henry Cejudo in January 2019 in just 32 seconds via knockout. After the fight, Dillashaw was given a 2-year suspension after testing positive for steroids. Returning in July 2021, Dillashaw defeated Corey Sandhagen, a top contender, by a split decision of his own. Since then, he's been getting better from a knee injury that was aggravated during the fight. And that's a wrap for this video. How do you think Frankie Edgar's last fight will go? Let us know in the comment section down below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channels for more videos like this. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.